Welcome to Behind the Lava Lava, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the vibrant people and cultures of the Pacific. This episode is brought to you by Frontline Heroes, a military real estate program giving back to those who gave their lives to keep us safe. I'm your host, Michael Tan, and joining me is my co-host, Atimua Mingi. Before we get started, a quick reminder to our listeners to follow, subscribe. Make sure you leave a review if you enjoy the show. Now let's jump straight into it. Today we'll be talking with Corinne Williams, aka Neena Love, a renowned publisher. Talofa, Neena.
Talofa Lava, renowned publisher. I love it.
So Neena, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from?
Okay, I was born Corinne Taihook, the daughter of James Taihook and of Hawaii. He's Hawaiian Chinese. My mother is Lisi Danielson. She's from Vaitoloa, Samoa. And she's Samoan Swedish. So I got that Hawaiian Chinese from my dad, Samoan Swedish from my mom. And I grew up in Hawaii in Hauula, and I went to Koku High School, graduated Koku High School. And then that's pretty much it. I had a wonderful life growing up in Hauula, and the values my mother instilled. Anybody who has a Samoan mother knows the power of a Samoan mother instilling values into her children, and I'm extremely grateful for everything that she has taught me. My father too, but she was the one that ran the house. Anybody that has a Samoan mother, and now me being a Samoan woman, I get it. And I'm so grateful my mom raised me the way she did. And I had a wonderful life. That's what I have to say. I just loved the life I had in Hawaii. But, to grow and change, I eventually moved here to South Carolina 7 years ago. I would have never thought that I would ever leave Hawaii, but I got called here, and for some reason the universe opened the way, and I'm here 7 years later. So I really enjoy what I do, and I'm probably moving too fast. Anyway, I enjoy what I do, and how I got into it is as a publisher is because I moved to South Carolina. So to me, it was like fated. It was fate for me to move to South Carolina, even though I'm 100% true blue island girl. It's crazy to be here still 7 years later.
That's a big move coming from the islands straight to the east coast of the United States. But shout out your parents, their names, and did you have any siblings?
Yeah, my older brother is James. Well, everybody called him Russell by his middle name because my father's name was James also. So they called him Russell. And he's still on the island. Thank you that I have people to go home to. Everybody's still at home. And then my sister Michelle, she lives in Arizona. And then my brothers Tori and Keith, who are both still in Hawaii also.
What made you want to become a publisher, especially wanting to help other people tell their stories? Where did the idea come from?
I love to read and write. Ever since I was little, I just loved reading. It was like I could go into a different world. But all of the stories that I would read as in Hawaii, growing up in Hawaii, everything I would read there was nobody that looked like me. There were hardly any characters that looked like me or sounded like me or had the same life experiences. So recently on social media, I posted, what is your favorite book? Childhood edition. So everybody was answering what their favorite book as a child was. And you see the themes, it was either Asian or it was Palangi. So you're like, I am kind of Asian, but the Chinese is way back. I don't know my Chinese heritage in that way. So there wasn't representation for people that looked like me, talked like me, and had similar experiences, right? Because as Pacific Islanders, we have a totally different mindset than the Western world in terms of community village life, about being accountable to the entire village. Like you can't go and do something bad, steal something or something, and one of your aunties or just a community member in general see you and not discipline you, right? And then you come here, there's rarely any accountability in the way we have in a village and a community that we come up in. So those types of experiences influences our behavior as adults. So I didn't see that in any of the books. So becoming an editor or becoming a publisher actually was what I wanted to write, the books that little girls like me would be able to read and understand and feel a connection to, and identify themselves in the stories that they read, whether they be fiction or nonfiction. I just wanted representation of Pacific Islanders in the book. So the whole thing, my publishing company, 2 Feet Productions, is our motto, our mission is to change the narrative. And I know it seems kind of cliche because everybody seems to be saying change the narrative, but I really do believe that. So changing the narrative doesn't actually only apply to Pacific Islanders. Like any author, any writer can be changing the narrative for the people that they represent or the people that they identify with. So it applies across the board, which is what I love about that simple phrase, change the narrative. You don't like what you see in the movies and the TV and Netflix or whatever, write the story that you do want to see. And that's really what drives me, because I want the world to be filled with real people's voices and not like so-called social engineering and agenda that we see in the media today.
So Neena, you mentioned your production company, Two Feet Productions. Who came up with that name?
My business partner and I, before it started out as Neena Love Inc. And so the first book I published was in Neena Love Inc. And then when I took on a business partner, he said, you're not really about this life. And I said, yes, I am. Both feet. And that's how it started. I'm in both feet, 10 toes. I'm in. So that's how it was. For me, it's significant, the 2 feet, because it really reminds me all the time. And even when I take on new clients, that I explain to them, we call 2 feet, and I explain the whole reason. I don't say the story, the personal story. I just say, I'm 2 feet, 10 toes in, all in for your project. So it's a reminder for me to be 100% committed to the projects I take on.
And real quick, how many people, about an estimate, have you helped so far publish or release their stories or books or manuscripts?
So a part of what I do is I also ghostwrite and I edit, and then I take people all the way to publishing. And the publishing, I would say it's not that much. Most of my other services are really more I do more of, which is the editing and the book design, cover, and but I think I have 7 or 8 published books, 9, 10, maybe 10. And the first one I ever took on, the whole reason I got into publishing, it was random. On Facebook, somebody posted 5 pages. At this time, I was working at the University of South Carolina. I've been in secondary education for years, like in an administrative position. And so I got here, I was working at the University of South Carolina. Somebody posted on Facebook 5 pages of their manuscript. And the guy, I've never met the person in my life, but he was a Facebook friend. So I said, hey, I messaged him and I said, hey, I'll edit your book for free and publish it for you. And you pay me on the back end. If you don't like the work I do, don't pay me. And that's how I got into publishing. And we are working on book 3 now. So, and this was the first one that we did. So I designed the cover. I'm going to tell you that I see so much errors now in it. This was the first one. This was the prototype, but it's made me sharpen my skill. And at the time, I was the only person that was doing this, I didn't have employees. I still don't have employees. I take on people as contractors rather than employees. But yeah, this was the first one. And that's how I started. I was like, oh, people really want this service. So I did it for a while as a side hustle. I didn't put much into it. But as of last year, I went all in. I quit my job. I left the University of South Carolina and publishing full time and doing this, building this business.
Are you a veteran, military member, law enforcement officer, hospital worker, or educator dreaming of owning your own home? Frontline Heroes is here to make that dream a reality. Their program is designed by a group of realtors, lenders, and escrow specialists who want to give back to those who served our communities. Here's how it works. Their realtors pledge to contribute 25% of their commission, while lenders chip in half a percentage towards closing costs and other fees associated with buying a house. It's their way of honoring your service and making home ownership more attainable. Contact Dan Taylor at 801-512-4200 to learn more and take the first step towards owning your own home. Frontline Heroes, turning dreams into keys.
So, who would you say is your target audience that you're looking for if people want to come and approach you?
If I had my dream customers, it's funny because I was just narrowing this down yesterday. I was working on an exercise to narrow down my target market so that I would be able to market effectively. So my dream customer is female, minority in the United States, preferably between the ages of 35 and 65. That's my dream customer. That doesn't mean I don't. In fact, I have no female customers. I have not published one single female author yet. And so I've been reaching out to people that I think would have a great story. But right now, most of my customers are African American. Most of them. I have one Samoan author that I helped. But most of them are African American between the ages of 35 and 65.
What would you say is unique about you that would draw a potential client to you from the rest of, the other publishers that are out there?
I haven't really gone through, I've looked at my competition to see what is my niche in this world. And one of the things that I am adamant about is not using AI, which if you use AI, it completely cuts your costs out, right? But I feel like what makes me different is that I'm not going to use the AI, and there's a really human touch behind this. Like I treat everybody like it's my mother, my brother, my sister that I'm helping. And so oftentimes, I say this all the time, people who are clients, whether they get my editing services or graphic services, they become friends. And so this first publishing I did, I call him my guy bestie now, because we are just, that is how much of me I put into every project I take on, which you can't scale that, right? Like I can't scale my personality and my warmth and my, hey, let's do this, and my coaching. But in my growth and as I scale this business, that is one of the important things that I never want to lose is the human connection. So I believe that's what's different, because my competition, they are charging a fraction for the same thing that I do. They are charging a fraction. So I'm like, how do they cut their costs so low? That's almost at cost. Like, that is crazy. Like the publishing costs plus the getting the ISBN and all of that, they're charging just that. Like, I don't know how they make money off of that. So must be because they run it through AI. I'm trying to figure out what they do. But maybe I should purchase one of their services and see where they go with it, because I don't know how they can charge just $400 for the service, because that's cost. That's how much it costs to just publish. Like, I don't know how they offer it. But anyway, like I said, it's the human connection that I believe separates me from other businesses. So I really pride myself on that, on having a one-on-one connection I'm available all the time when they call or email. If I can't get to them, if I can't answer their call, I'll text immediately, say, hey, let me call you back. I'm in a meeting, or I'll send an email right away. So I really, really cherish that. Like now there's all like self checkout and cashier. I will never use the self checkout if there's a cashier available. I will never, because I like the human connection. I don't want to do my own scanning. So yeah, I cherish the human connection, and that's what separates me.
So, Neena, you were referred by Fa'apipili Hankin, the author of Heart of a Warrior, to us. So Pele referred you to us because she felt that your story needed to be told to the people. And shout out to Pele. You are such a blessing to our podcast and platforms, and doing many great things out there telling your story. Neena, how has it been for you so far? What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced ever since you've been in this industry?
Like I said, it's the competition, being able to offer their services at such a discount. I don't know how they do it. Like, how do I compete? How do I stay competitive when people can offer it? It's like, but you know what? Like I tell myself all the time, even in the world of Walmarts and Amazons, there's still Target, and there's still, these smaller retailers. So in my head, I tell myself, there is a place for me. There is a niche. I have to find it so that I can remain competitive. And so that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. That is one of the things that has been fueling me and driving me to grow my business and find that perfect niche. That is one of the biggest lessons, was that I can still thrive. I just have to find what it is that makes me different from anybody else, and then how I can scale it so that it can grow. And yeah, you know what? Marketing was oh my gosh, I never did any marketing. Everything I did before was word of mouth. And now I've come to realize, you need a market, especially since I left my job. I can have the best message in the world, but if they can't hear it, nobody knows it's there, I don't have anything. So I have been actively working the last month on how to market my business, which means I have to narrow down to exactly, like you said, who is my ideal customer? And then that's where I have to go and show my ideal customers what I have so that they can buy it. So those are some of the lessons. Marketing is essential. That is one of the biggest things. And I look at the potential that can come from marketing. Man, I have been missing out because I haven't done any marketing.
Now, what would you say is the kind of community support that you need to help your business thrive?
Right now, as I've been trying to grow this, the one thing that I didn't have was the marketing. So I really, as a community, I was like, man, who can I turn to that's good at this marketing thing? And really, aside from the people I've helped in Hawaii to publish or edit their work or do their graphic work, I really would like to work with more Pacific Islanders. And only because the representation that I was looking for as a child, that's what I want for people like me to see themselves, to identify, to be like, oh man, they're saying exactly what I mean, or what I feel. They are saying what I feel. And so ideally from our community, I really wish everybody would, if you have a story to tell, I would love to document it. I would love to tell your story. So the thing that keeps us back, especially in our Pacific Island cultures, is that we are afraid. Fear holds us back, not only because we look for validation from our village, but we're afraid to be the one to leave the pack. We're afraid to be the one to leave everybody behind. We're afraid to go blaze a trail because ideally how we're taught is that we help the village rise with us, right? You can't leave the village. You have to help the village rise. So sometimes we do have to leave so that we are able to, it's like, you see, not that our people are drowning, but you see something is not working. you have to go find the solution instead of let's all drown together and then I'll go, like if we all make it, we all make it. If we don't, oh well. Instead of just having the courage, put aside the fear to follow exactly what you feel like you are called to do. So I always felt, even as a child, like I think I was in the fourth grade. No, not think. I was in the fourth grade. I know I was in the fourth grade. My teacher, Miss Tepper, I shout her out every single time somebody asked me about why I love reading and why I love writing. It was because my fourth grade teacher, Miss Ellie Tepper, who I found out is still alive. She was actually, this is how small the world is. So my sister-in-law, my older brother's wife, she is a kindergarten teacher. So when she became a kindergarten teacher, she had a mentor. Her mentor was Miss Ellie Tepper. I said, who's your mentor? And she told me that I just about flipped. Because that is the woman that has made me love reading and writing. Anyway, so I knew from a very young age that I wanted to write. That's all I wanted to. If you see, I have like journals that date back to 1986. Like all over here, this part of my wall is all of my journals and diaries. Even down to like little books like this, I keep them. Even though they're just notes, little notes I always have a notebook on me. But I've kept all of them. Now, when I graduated high school, my parents said, go to college and get go do the college thing and get a good degree. And I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to write. What are you going to do with writing? Nobody does writing. What? That's not going to make you money. So to please my parents, I'm not saying anybody should disrespect their parents, but one should. I know as Pacific Islanders, we love our parents and we love our family, but you should also be true to yourself and the calling that you're called to do, that you feel in your gut, that you should go do it. And I wish I could go back in time and start this when I was much younger. I'm gonna be 49 this year, so I wish I started this like 30 years ago rather than now. But better late than never. You know what? I had to learn all those lessons to get here, to make more of an impact and to be where I am. So that's one thing from our community. I just hope everybody will just step outside of their comfort zone just for a little bit and do the thing that you want to do. So if it is like a lot of people that I say, oh my gosh, you have such an interesting story. Not only am I coming from, oh, I want you as a client, but really I am interested in people and I am interested in the stories and the things that make people so different. And oh, I understand you now. I understand why you're like that or why you choose the things that you do. And so I want to document that. I want them to tell the story. And all the time I say, hey, you have an interesting story. We should write it down. Oh, I'm nobody. I'm just normal. I'm average. Nobody wants to hear my story. And that's the biggest. I mean, you read some of the people I read. Oh man, I can't remember. Her name was Cheryl Strayed. It was a Palangi lady that was going through a divorce and she did this hike. You would never think that would be an interesting story. Like off the rip, you're like, oh, she went on a hike. That should be interesting. But it's the way she told her story about her transformation, her personal transformation and her trials that I could identify with the stories she had. So people that I come into contact with, especially in our community, I say, wow, I know that. I know about the fa'alawilawas. And I know about having to be in the kitchen all day, there's some serving here, and you can't do anything but do fa'als all day. I know all about that. Like whatever it is, we have common things that we can identify with that every other Pacific Islander, most of us, the ones that weren't spoiled, can understand and identify with the experience. And so that's really what I want from our community, is to be able to share our stories and stop hiding, share our stories. It's time.
Let's talk concrete cutting, and who better to go than All Pro Concrete Cutters, owned by the one and only Thomas Fa'aliliu. They are pros with over a decade of experience, so you know you're in good hands. Whether it's big or small, residential or commercial, they've got the skills and the tools for any job. Thomas Fadiliu and his team take pride in their work, making sure your project is done right and on time. No cutting corners here, just precision and passion. Give them a call at 801-834-8835. Go with All Pro Concrete Cutters for top-notch results. All Pro Concrete Cutters, your dreams cut to perfection.
I think that that story you're talking about, the hike, I think they made that into a movie. I forgot what's her name. She acted in that movie, and it was based on a true story, which is interesting. Man, this is it really resonates with me because what you were saying about the whole clan, the whole Aingan, the whole village doesn't want you to step out and do your thing. And the reason why, that was the whole premise of Moana. That's the reason why Moana decided, hey, I want to go over there and save our village. And the dad, the Makai, didn't want to let her go. The chief of the village. So that's kind of how, like, majority of us, Kanka Pacifica, Pacific Islanders, the way that we've been, raised, especially if you're actually from the motherland, from back home in American Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, all these small Pacific islands, Hawaii too as well. It's just one of those things where, hey, man, we got to step out of our stepping stone in order for us to really, do what we are calling, like you said. And a lot of the folks that I knew from Hawaii, they came up here to the States, and then they moved back because they were so used to that comfortability. They were so used to the island life, that they decided, hey, I just want to move back home, stay with moms, stay with dad, and stuff like that. Now, in your situation, you've been there for like 7 years. Why? I don't know if 10 asked you this, but why South Carolina of all the states? And we kind of had this discussion with our cast members. If I think all the states, all the islanders represent, they all live in all the states. And, now this is the first time we've had a guest from South Carolina. So why South Carolina of all places?
Well, Pele lives here. But Pele Hunkin, she lives here
she's
too.
in South Carolina.
but okay, so I was working. I was in Hawaii before I moved here, and I was working at BYU Hawaii, and I got divorced. So I had just gotten divorced, and it was like turmoil. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't have any children, so it was like the whole world is my oyster. Where can I go? And my cousin, who's like a sister, she was stationed here at Fort Jackson here in Columbia, South Carolina. I think she, you know what? I don't even know her rank, but she's a high rank official. She's working in the Pentagon now. Marie Matavao Slack. So she's like my sister. She's actually my mom's sister's daughter, but we grew up like sisters. You know how that goes. Anyway, so she's like, hey sis, why don't you just move out here and start a new life? So I had several options. There was Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Riverside, California, Utah, Las Vegas. These were all the 5 options. Oh, and San Francisco. Those were the options that I had put out my resume to all these different companies. I was trying to move out of education, secondary education. I was just tired, bored of it. And anyway, so I applied everywhere. Massive application. I applied to here in South Carolina because she was here, my cousin. And out of all the applications I put out, 3 applications at the University of South Carolina got pulled. And I got interviewed for all 3. And I got job offers for all 3. Nowhere else called me back. And I have a pretty nice resume with glowing recommendations from my former employers. So I was like, what is going on? I guess I got to go to South Carolina. So the one job that I did actually accept, as soon as I accepted it, everywhere else called. Like Texas called, Atlanta called, like everywhere else called. But I had already accepted the position at University of South Carolina. So that's how I ended up in South Carolina. Why I stayed? There's like a freedom here that I haven't felt. And it's funny you talked about the movie Moana, because in my decision to come here, I watched that movie in the theater with my nieces and nephews, and I was like, this is my story. Like I'm bawling in the theater and everybody's looking at me like, what's wrong with her? This old lady is just like crying her eyes out about this movie. But it was the same thing, to take the courage and be the first one to go. Of course, do I miss my family? Absolutely. Do I miss the food? Yes. Do I miss the people? Yes. The wonderful weather? Yes. The ocean? I miss all of that. And yet I'm really, truly happy here. And, but I had to take that one step of faith to leave the island, to go find my destiny, so to speak, just like in the movie Moana. But that movie really, I mean, I was a mess. I was a wreck when I just finally decided to come out here and I accepted the position because I was leaving my dad. Everybody knows now I'm single. I should be moving home with my dad to take care of my dad. Like, that's just what Pacific Island daughters do. Anyway, that's not what I did. And I took that. And you know what? My dad is great. He's never come out here, but I go home like 2 or 3 times a year. So it's okay. But just taking that one leap of faith, that one step of courage, it's like on my social media, I echo what that writer Paulo Coelho says about a ship a ship is safe in the harbor, but it wasn't meant to be safe in the harbor. It was meant to sail the open sea. So I use that a lot in keeping me not homesick, in staying and being present wherever I am, because this is the big wide ocean and I'm sailing it, and I feel the most present in my life right now, before more than any other time.
You hear that, all our single male, listeners? She's available, and hey, just kidding. Hey, thank you, appreciate it.
Neena, good on you for finding a place for you to call home. So what aspects in your role as a publisher do you enjoy the most?
It's the people stories. It's the people. I published an author who is currently incarcerated. And being able to work with him and make this dream of his come true, even though he's incarcerated, was like, that really changed me. Like, I thought, man, because I have to imagine that it's kind of hopeless to be in prison and all of those things, but to be able to help someone like that. And I've become really good friends with his wife, because she did most of the legwork for him. But I just love meeting new people and hearing their stories. It gives me a different perspective outside of my cultural, religious upbringing that makes me more compassionate for other people's, lives, the things that they've been through. So the best thing about my work is that I love the people I work with.
So Neena, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, where can they find you? Do you have a website and your social media handles and ways to contact you?
Yeah. My website is 2feetpro.com. The number 2, FEETPRO.com. And then my handle across all platforms is at Love, Love, Neena, Neena, Love. So Love, Neena Love, like it's me writing at the end of a letter. Love, Neena Love.
And before we close it out, I like to ask our guests this question, because here at Behind the Love Lava, we also want to improve and learn. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah. Why did you guys get into this? I love it. I always think about, everybody always tells me, oh yeah, personality, you should have a podcast then. But how did you get into this?
Yeah, so initially, Tan was, they initially started the podcast. I was just kind of like an additional member, it's fairly beginning of the podcast. But I initially wanted to come on because, I love storytelling too as well, as much as getting to know people. We're, in our culture and our, Pacifica folks, Pacific Islanders, we're people, individuals. We like to hug. Yeah, we don't have bubbles. We're like so close, and we like to get intimate with everybody, and we're so nosy and stuff like that. So that's part of why I kind of like got drawn to Behind the Lava Lava because, at the aspect of it, Behind the Lava Lava is like, hey, I want to get to know what's behind the individual. What's your story? So just like you, that was part of the reason why I kind of joined and, want to discuss some of the tough topics that we don't talk about in our culture and our society, especially in the Pacific Islands. Those are one of the main aspects that I wanted to discuss. And this is the perfect platform, not only for us as veterans just to discuss within ourselves, but then on a macro level where we could, reach other folks that, maybe they want to discuss and, they don't have a space to listen. So, this is a space that I think can reach at least my opinions and what I think, my point of views, where it could reach other folks out there that may otherwise don't have a platform, so they could listen to, a bunch of little, veteran guys and, we think we know it all type stuff. And, so just a discussion space. That's the reason why. So thank you. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, Ati basically covered everything, but for me personally, when I pitched the ideas to the guys to start a podcast, it was mainly to kind of focus and bring it back to men's mental health. Even though we were covering all these topics, it was to help me cope with depression and suicidal ideation, because I was going through a lot at the time, because we started a podcast 2 years ago. This month would be our 2nd year anniversary for the podcast. And I wanted to tell the story, and we started out broad, and now we began to niche to 3 things. We want to tell the stories of all veterans, don't matter your background, your race, ethnicity. We wanted to tell the stories of the people and the culture of the Pacific Islands, and we wanted to highlight small businesses and nonprofits. So that's basically what we are. We are involved in a community, and we want to tell everyone's story.
I love it. No, see, that's why. Hey, you have an interesting story with the mental health for males. That's like a big thing. And I think men have it more difficult than women, because women, we're feely, emotional, and touchy-feely, and guys are expected not to have the same type of emotions. And so there's no outlet for men. So yeah, that's a big topic, and I think you should lean into that. A lot of guys don't, talk. Is closed off emotionally. So I applaud that. That's great. You should lean into that.
I was going to say a lot of the guys that are listening, she just said it. That's a woman's point of view. Be open. Be open to your ladies. Communicate, please.
Yeah, I see it so often. Like a close cousin of mine who suffers from PTSD. He is hard, and so his wife would always call me to come and control him because she can't control his rage. But yeah, I see it firsthand. And especially, I don't know if because I'm a Pacific Islander, I'm saying the layers for Pacific Island people in general of emotional, like having to stifle our emotions. Like, what are you crying for? Stop crying. Whack! Or, like just the levels of emotional abuse. They would call it abuse, but some of us are okay now. But the levels and layers on top of that, the expectation of society on men to be providers and protectors and all of these things, it's just, that's a lot of layers for men to go through. And you need a partner unconditionally who you can sound off with. And yeah, anyway, I feel for you, men. That's a lot of layers to unpack.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for a podcast, is a lot of people can relate to the same struggles that we talk about. But we really appreciate you, Neena, for joining us. Shout out some people that you want to acknowledge in this episode.
I just remember what my cousin's rank is. She's like my sister. Her name is Colonel Mataval Slack. Love her. And she is currently stationed at the Pentagon. And I keep telling her, just stay in, because she's ready to retire. I said, just stay in until you're a general. But so I like to shout her out. I love to shout out my sisters, Summer and Carrie. Summer Prescott and Carrie Ofahengawe, they're in Utah. They own several businesses, but they are like my aces. I shout out my brothers, my sister, my brothers, especially my older brother. He's such a rock. Again, male, they provide such security and protection for us, and he really is in every way like the best. I'm going to tear up if I keep talking about him. He is the best brother in the whole wide world. Like, he's so good to me, has always been. So I like to shout him out. And my dad. My mother passed away in 2011, so I still shout her out. And she probably hears me in the universe. But yeah, and my dad. Everybody is like such, support system. My business partners. And yeah, that's who I'm shouting out. And I appreciate you for having me on.
Appreciate you, Neena. Now, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Behind the Lava Lava. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow our podcast, drop a comment, and leave us a review. Also, go follow Neena Love on her social media. This is Michael Tan and the team signing off. Tofa Soifua.
Working on my interests, it's who I am. I'm trying to make these digits look like EINs. When the help ain't free, you all help me. Salute to folks who turn their names to LLCs. The wealth is in itself to help a non-profit. To be better women or better men, whether business by veterans or common folks with a dream. We're all born with the same strength. We tread waters that were untouched. Let's be on the same wavelength. Behind the lava, front of our eyes. Let our legacy live off it when we're up in the sky. All signs point to us to help someone make a difference. With God as my witness, cause talk business.